If you've been struggling with plantar fasciitis for quite a long time, you would likely have been told already that you need cushioned shoes with good arch support and should always stay away from flat shoes without arch support. But recent research is actually challenging this one-size-fits-all approach to plantar fasciitis. In this video, I'm going to unpack the latest research and look at what shoes might be useful for different cases, how you can decide what is best in your case, and also have a look at the description if you're looking for prettier shoes for plantar fasciitis, because the usual choices can be quite ugly. I've put some links in there. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Marika. I'm one of the physiotherapists from sportsinjuryphysio.com, where you can get online physiotherapy assessment as well as treatment of any type of sports injury, all done via video call. Now, if it sounds a bit weird, how can somebody treat you without touching you? Have a look at the description of this video. I've put a link to the website there, and we discuss in detail why video call assessments and treatment work so well for the type of injuries we treat. There is a reason why most podiatrists and physiotherapists, including myself, have been telling our patients to wear cushioned shoes with good arch support. There are plenty of high-quality studies that show that it can reduce your pain better, as well as improve your function compared to flat shoes or unsupportive shoes. Why does this work? Because if you think of the function of the plantar fascia, it's meant to stop the arch from collapsing. So it's a thick fibrous band under the foot, and as you stand, it pulls tight and stops the arch from collapsing. Now, if you can give it a little bit of arch support when it's injured, then it doesn't have to work that hard. So then it gets time to recover and just calm down, and it's happier all around. An example of studies, for instance, include a 2015 study where they looked at custom-made orthotics, so orthotics that's shaped specifically for your foot to support your arch, put into shoes, versus sandals that just had ordinary arch support built into them that was off the shelf. And they found that in both cases, it really improved people's symptoms, and it was pretty equal. So there was no extra value from the custom-made ones. And both of these cases improved people's pain and helped them better than when they walked around in just flat shoes or unsupportive shoes. Then there are two review studies, one from 2018, one from 2019, that looked at all the research around supportive orthotics or arch support for plantar fasciitis. And both of them concluded that yes, wearing arch support decreases your pain in the short term, and it works better than flat or unsupportive shoes. So there is good evidence that arch support can be useful. However, like I mentioned at the start, there is new research out there that I think we need to pay attention to. And the first is a study from 2024, where they looked at if they give people with chronic plantar fasciitis, and I'll explain in a minute why that's important, a walking program. And the one group wore regular shoes, and the other group actually walked barefoot. They walked on a treadmill, and they did a set amount of time in a day, and they used it as strength training exercise. They wanted to see how this affects their pain over time. And both groups improved over time. But the group that did the barefoot walking improved more than the group who did the walking in their normal shoes. And the thinking here is that the barefoot walking helped to improve the people's muscle strength in the feet more than what they improved when they did the walking in their shoes, and therefore they got more benefit. Because we know from other research that strengthening the foot muscles can help reduce your pain, especially in chronic cases of plantar fasciitis. I have made a video about that, by the way. If you want to know more about that, look at the description of this video. I'll put a link there. In another study, they also looked at what happened if people wore minimalist, really flexible shoes for several hours a day. And they found that, yes, it really improved their pain over time, especially if it was paired with arch support. However, it's also important to understand that these people didn't walk around all day long with it. They also basically wore it for a few hours a day as strength training. There is something that worries me about this study, and that is that it had quite a large dropout of participants, and they're not really saying why they dropped out. And the problem with this is that it might be that only the ones where the shoes really worked for them stayed in the study, and the ones that flared up dropped out, and they just didn't report on that. So it may be that the results looked very positive when actually there were loads of people where their pain increased. So I don't really trust this study as much as the previous one. My takeaway with all of this is just that we shouldn't be giving all or nothing advice. There is a place likely for people to be doing barefoot walking or wearing minimalist shoes for short periods of the day as strength training, but it likely depends on how long you've had your plantar fasciitis for, how sensitive it is, and all of those things. I'll talk about that in a minute a bit more, because there is one more study I want to mention, and this is a very small study, so we can't make definitive decisions of it, but it does make you think a bit. And what this study found was that when people rotated between different pairs and types of shoes, their pain actually settled better and they did better than people who just stuck to the same type of shoe all the time. And this can make sense if you consider or you argue that when I wear a more supportive shoe or a shoe that's just a slightly different shape, I use slightly different muscles or strain slightly different areas of my foot when I'm using it. So it means that the rest of the foot's getting active recovery and different parts are working harder than when I wear a different type of shoe. So it may be that if you switch shoes up, it just means that your foot doesn't have to work equally hard everywhere all the time. So that may be something to try as well, that you don't just stick to one type of shoe, you actually mix them up a bit. So here's my advice that I would give somebody today who's got plantar fasciitis. The first is that you do need a pair of arch support shoes. Now, if you don't want to buy new shoes with arch support, then I would get some off-the-shelf orthotics, because the research is showing that off-the-shelf orthotics seem to work just as well as custom-made orthotics to help your plantar fascia. And why do you need this? Because you do need periods of the day where the plantar fascia needs a bit of support, because when it's injured, it just can't walk without support all day long. So you need that arch support. The second is that if you're going to walk around a lot on tiled flooring or concrete floors or tarmac, anything that's a hard surface, I would also look for a cushioned shoe, because that just dampens the impact and it means the plantar fascia again doesn't have to work that hard. It takes less strain. So arch support and cushion is still part of my advice that I would give. By the way, if you're wondering what an arch support orthotic looks like, I've put links to ones that I found works well in the past in the description of this video as well. Then I wouldn't see minimalist shoes or unsupportive shoes as a total no-no, but it will depend on where you are in your recovery. If you've got an acute case of plantar fasciitis, which means it only flared up a few days ago, or maybe you've had a chronic case that's been there for a long time, but it's recently had a flare-up, that means that that plantar fascia at that point is really, really irritated. And if you're now going to walk in unsupportive shoes, it's going to have to work harder and it's likely just going to flare up more. And especially if it's a brand new injury, it just needs to rest. It hasn't lost its strength yet. If you can give it rest, it will calm down much more quickly. By the way, I've made videos about treatment, so have a look at the description if you want more advice about that. However, if you've got a chronic case of plantar fasciitis, so this means a case that's been going on for more than 3 months, then you do want to start strengthening your foot muscles as well. And walking in minimalist shoes or bare feet on softer surfaces could be a way to do it. But you want to introduce it as very short sessions, like 5 minutes to start with, see how your foot reacts in the 24 hours after, because remember, it often doesn't tell you in the moment that it's going to be painful. It only tells you in the next day or the next morning when you wake up, oh, I've now overdone it. So if you do want to give minimalist shoes or barefoot walking a try, very short session the first time, just 5 minutes or something. And I would definitely choose a soft surface. I wouldn't walk around barefoot on tiles if that's the only option you have. Then I would rather use like flip-flops or something that's not supportive necessarily, but it at least gives you a bit of cushioning there. And then the last thing I would tell people is rotate your shoes. So have at least 2 or 3 options, even if you always wear supportive shoes when you go outside, but when you're in the house, maybe there's times that you can have less support that you use. Brilliant. Hope you found that useful. Now, if you've got any questions, just ask them in the comments. And if you need more help with an injury, you're welcome to consult one of the team via video call. The link to the website is in the description of this video. Take care.